Welcome to the Tokumba Chronicles, a podcast about the journeys we take and the stories we make. In this podcast, I'll be sharing moving stories that are sure to empower, educate, and entertain you. Stories have an incredible way of connecting us to one another, uplifting us, and giving us permission to tell our own story. I will be speaking to entrepreneurs, trailblazers, and dreamers who have incredible and powerful stories to share. From their triumphs and tribulations, we'll be drawing out the details, the how-tos, and the lessons we can take away. Life is what you make it, and only you get to decide how your story is written. I hope by sharing these stories with you, you will live inspired and equipped to live yours out unapologetically. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the chronicles. I am your host and chief storyteller, Tokumba Kweki, a multi-passionate entrepreneur, founder of the award-winning Tokumba's Kitchen and London African Food Week. When I'm not cooking up a storm in the kitchen or regaling guests with my own epic stories, you are most likely to find me in the middle of the dance floor, bringing the party to life. Welcome back to the second episode of a two-part series, Conversations with Alex Pemberton. If you haven't already, I suggest you listen to that episode as Alex talks about making a decision to become an entrepreneur at the age of just 11 years old. Also, how doing a SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis on himself enabled him to come up with his business idea. In this episode, we talk about the different ways of marrying your passion and skills to create a business that solves the problems others might have. The difference between being employed, self-employed, a business owner, or entrepreneurial, and the need to go through these different phases before you can become an entrepreneur. Also, Alex believes that success leaves clues, and this will guarantee the viability of any business idea because Alex believes everyone should be an entrepreneur. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the chronicles. I've struggled for the first couple of years I started my business in 2015, but this is actually not my first business. And that was the interesting thing for me. I'd always had a side hustle from when I was young, from when I was 15, simply because my mom was a businesswoman. And even now, I don't see my mom as an entrepreneur. I see my mom as a business owner, as a businesswoman, because she had multiple shops in Nigeria and here in London, and she was always traveling. In fact, she's going to Dubai and Turkey in 2 weeks' time to do some shopping. But the business model that I saw my mom had was a very African one of, selling on credit and then clawing that money back. So I didn't want to be a business woman. I wanted to have a career. I wanted to be a professional. And that's why I went to uni to do. I got my degrees, but at the same time, my mom brought me along to her business. So she used to send me to America to do shopping for her. So I always had what is now seen as a side hustle, but at no point did I really think about doing this full time until I think it was like 2012. Similarly, funny enough, around the same time as you, when I was going through I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore in terms of social work. And I didn't know what it is that I wanted to do. So I was going through this motion of exploring what is it that I could be doing. And at the time I'd moved to Nigeria, and, people were always commenting about my fashion sense and, asking me to buy things for them. So I started thinking about doing personal shopping and having a fashion business. And so funny enough, in the summer of 2015, I did a SWOT analysis on myself for this fashion brand. I sent an email to my closest friends and family to say, this is what I'm launching. If you have any ways you can introduce me to clients. And then I found myself starting a food business instead. And then 2 years into my food business, I remember it was New Year's Day and I was at my friend's house, and I remember saying to my friends, why the hell did you guys let me start a food business? And they all responded, we actually don't know, because we all saw you as the fashion person. In fact, out of that group of friends, there was one in particular that we always used to be like, you should open a restaurant, because when we went to her house, she would literally cook up a feast, whereas I wasn't known as the foodie in that way. So after then, having done my business for about 2 years, there was a point when I realized that actually I am now an entrepreneur. And it was summer of 2017. And essentially I had 3 sites running at the same time. I was operating at 2 festivals and I was running the kitchen of an hotel. And the best thing about that for me was everyone that went to the different locations where I wasn't, they were still impressed. They were like, oh my God, the food was amazing. We had, the service was great. And I was like, oh, I'm a boss. I had this, 3 locations going at the same time. And, it was incredibly stressful for me, but it kind of gave me a vision of what my life could be. And also I remember last year, so I was running the kitchen at the Green Rooms Hotel in North London for 6 months. And then we started in January. Initially, it was meant to be for 3 months. But after the first month, the manager agreed for us to extend dates indefinitely. So, but by April, I was exhausted. And I was like, I'm going away. I'm going to Cuba. And my staff that I was training at the time to kind of like take over for me, he wasn't really performing at the level that I needed him to perform at. But I really, really needed a break. So I remember saying to him, do you know what? I am going away. The kitchen is in your hands. If the kitchen burns down while I'm away, I really don't care, because at this point, I just need a break. But in my mind, obviously hoping that he would rise up to the task. And he did. And, whilst I was away, and I was in Cuba, so the best thing about being in that location at that time was there was no internet connection. So apart from like in the mornings where we'd go to like the internet cafe and internet park and check in for a few, like maybe like 20-30 minutes, for the rest of the day, there was no internet. So I could not communicate with him. So I couldn't check up on him. And I just had an amazing time because I did not think about my business. I didn't think about the kitchen. I didn't worry about him. And I came back and I still had a business. And I think for me, that was when I realized, like, okay, yeah, this is what being an entrepreneur is. Because essentially, like you said, I always believe that if you are working in your business, then you're not an entrepreneur, you're just a manager. And it might be that you have entrepreneurial mindset, but you haven't made that transition from being a business owner to being an entrepreneur. The other thing that always worries me as well is when people who are no working experience of themselves start a business. And I'm like, how can you be a business owner or be an entrepreneur, leading other people? Because that's another thing about being an entrepreneur. You have to bring people into your vision. You have to bring people you have to get people invested in your own business idea to the point where they will run that business on your behalf. And if you've never had an experience of being an employee, how do you then navigate what it means to be an employer? And I just kind of be interested from your perspective, and especially the kind of people that you're doing consultations with, is it something that comes up for you? Is it something that you kind of like discuss with potential entrepreneurs, or what is your take on that?
I think the wonderful thing about entrepreneurship is that no matter what you've done in the past, it doesn't necessarily determine your future. And I think because they're children who start businesses. They're children who are 12-year-olds or 14, whatever, and they go to their mum, I want to make jams. And mum's like, okay, make a jam. Then they make a jam and their mum's like, this is really good.
Yeah, but the difference with that is they have an adult who has experience of maybe not necessarily running a business, but knowing how to interact with people that will help them move that business along. It's not that child that is employing staff. It's still going to be a parental figure.
So they have their parents who are their mentors. So I think if you have no experience in working for someone, being an employee, and then you become an employer, it doesn't have to be difficult, because they can speak to someone like you and you can say, actually, I want to start this thing. Why wait? Why wait until I've got experience working for someone, being a manager, before I start, when I can get your knowledge, or I can read a book and figure out how it's done? Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot of times now, actually, like in our community, we want to do something new. We go and study for 2 years. By the time the 2 years is up, you've probably missed that opportunity. So it's like, I've met so many people. They're like, I'm going to start a business, so I'm going to go on a short accounting course because I need to do my accounts. Like, no, you don't. Pay someone to do it. Or I need to learn marketing, so I'm going to go on a course. No, pay someone to do your marketing. You can see their results and get them to do it. Oh, I need to manage a team. Get someone who knows how to manage a team. Because for some of us, some entrepreneurs, we're just the ideas people. You know what? Honestly, I'm one of those people. And for me, getting a team, getting an events manager, getting someone who's going to help me do marketing and graphics and all that kind of stuff. And they're better at following a process than I am, because I'm a creative person. I want to fix everything all the time. So useful. When I started, I have no experience in leading a team. Okay. Yeah, I didn't, apart from at uni group projects. So that was some experience, but it wasn't real world, do you know? But for me, it's like starting this thing is what I'm really, really good at. And once it's started, it needs to be handed off to someone else. And that person might come along and say, I'm good at X, but actually I don't know how to keep it going. And I might say, this is how you keep it going. So I don't think you need to have work for someone, but I think you would need to be willing to what am I trying to say? You would need to be willing to be led, or would have had some experience being led. So for those children who start their business, jam business at 12, 14, whatever, their parents are leading them and they're mentoring them. They're saying, okay, you know what, when you go into that meeting, make sure you give a firm handshake and all that kind of stuff. So I think the mentoring is crucial.
Yeah. And I think I guess that's kind of where I'm leading to in terms of, what are the ways that you can kind of like mitigate?
Sorry.
We were doing so well, Alex.
Sorry.
What are the ways you can kind of mitigate the lack of experience that you might have and also I think, one of the things, like I said, that struck me about your story was you did things that are very, you did things to advance yourself. So you read articles about businesses and what it means to be an entrepreneur before you actually took that leap. You did things like doing market research on your ideas to see how viable it is. Whereas a lot of people just have an idea and they're like, okay, this is my idea and I'm just going to start throwing money into the idea without actually going through the process of, is my idea viable? Have I done market research? Do I know that this location where I'm looking to set up is where my target audience is? Do I even know my target audience? Because that's the other thing. I meet so many people who want to start businesses or have businesses, but then I remember a graphic, I don't know if I should tell this story in case she watches it, but I remember a graphic designer that I was working with in the early days of my business, and whenever I ask her to do a job, she would come back and I'd be like, I don't like this, change this. And she would do so many like changes. And then at the end of it, she'll send me an invoice and I'll be like, oh, is that it? And in my mind, I'm like, this is ridiculously cheap. But hey, I'm not complaining. Obviously, I didn't really have big money at the time. So I paid her. And then one day I started talking to her and I realized that she had no concept of pricing herself. So she was, she decided to go full time into entrepreneur, like becoming basically a freelancer as a graphic designer, starting her business, but the basic principles of pricing, she didn't even have. And I remember just thinking, this is so scary because how is your business going to function or survive if you haven't even learned the basics, principles of knowing how to price yourself?
Yeah. So how to mitigate those risks? Do you know what? So that figure, that percentage, what is it, 90 something percent of businesses failing within the first 2 years? In 2019, people, that should not be happening. No business should fail. It should be. I hear that thing about failure and learning from. We have a series of failures and we're successful, all that kind of stuff. But if you're starting a business, if you start it correctly and you get the fundamentals in place, and there's no excuse for you to say, I don't know how to start. There's so many books. All you have to do, for example, if there's a shop that you grew up on the street and they've been going for years, ask them how they made it work, because they're business owners. How did they keep customers coming back? What is it? And if you're not happy with that answer, go to someone else, someone to be a mentor. For me, the advice that my mentors gave me saved me so much heartache. So this pricing thing, I had no idea what my pricing was. I was doing it based on what everyone else. And my mentor said to me, you need to figure out how much you need to pay yourself, and you figure that out by adding all of your expenses, every single one of them. Don't leave anything out. And I do this with every single client. If I ask someone how they're getting on and do they know their survival budget, and they start guessing, I say, before we go any further, this is your homework, and you do your expenses. Look, if you're listening and you don't do anything else after this. Just do this
Yeah.
and it will change your life. Whether you want to be an entrepreneur or get a new job or get a raise, you calculate all of your expenses, every single one, including your debt, like anything that's supposed to leave your bank account next year based on what you've done this year. You calculate that, divided by 47 weeks, because we're supposed to work 47 weeks, 2 weeks holiday and 2 weeks public holidays and 1 week sick.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, is that all we get? Is that all we allowed?
You get more than America. America, they only
Really?
get 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. If you're in America, do this now. So if you are, you'll get your weekly rate, what that should be. Obviously multiply that by 4 for a month. But if you divide that number, that you got from when you divide your expenses by 47 weeks, divide further by 5 days.
Yeah.
Right? 5 days. That will give you your weekly rate.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Let me start again. If you divide your expenses by 47, right?
That gives you your weekly.
Yes.
And then you divide it by
5. That gives you your daily
rate.
So you got your daily rate.
Yeah.
And then if you divide that by, is it 7 or 8 hours? How many hours we work? Then that's your hourly rate. So if someone says to you, hey, can you do this for me, graphic designer? They know that they need to charge X based on that number.
Sure. And
also, that's how you know what your company needs to pay you every month and every year, or every week or every hour, whatever as well. That's super important.
That's a really, really good tip, people. Seriously.
That is really important. But what my mentor said to me, which was the real kicker, he said, when you do this, don't let the numbers scare you.
Yeah.
But when you do it, add on what holidays you want to do next year. So as an entrepreneur, if you want to take holidays next year, so for me and my wife in 2017, we took a month off. That was scary for me. It's like, I'm going to be a month away from my business.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I'm just going to sit on the beach and drink rum?
Is that what you did?
No.
Be truthful.
I was on the beach a lot. Not that much rum though. Lots of lobster and fried. Oh, do you know?
So showing off.
It was so good. But yeah, so when he said that, so our holiday, we went to the Caribbean. We spent a month in the Caribbean. And while we were in the Caribbean, we went from Grenada to St. Kitts. And the cost for the two of us and our daughter to go from here to Grenada was the same to go from Grenada to St. Kitts.
Wow.
Because inter-island travel is not that frequent.
Same as Africa. So annoying.
So it was
so annoying. That's a business problem, Alex. If you can solve that, seriously, you will be a billionaire.
So I included that holiday and I was like, actually, it would be nice to have another holiday. Yeah. So when I included that, then that number went up. Now, mark you, if you're working for yourself, if you're a freelancer, for example, you're probably not going to work every single day of the week. And if you're a business owner, and so let's say my hourly rate is £50 an hour. Yeah. And I charge, and the company, the limited company that pays me, charges £50 an hour. What does the company get? Yeah. How does the company pay for its expenses? So you might say, okay, I'll put 20% or 30% on that. And then that way the company makes 20% profit on whatever I charge. Yeah. Great, right? You could do that, or you could say, actually, these are all the expenses that my company has. So on top of the yearly expenses, you add that to yours because it needs to pay you. And it's just very simple. So when you're going for your next job and you want to ask for a raise, it's like, actually, like I need 29,000 to survive next year. This year, I'm just about making it with all of my expenses. I need a raise. Yeah. Then your job is to convince your employer what they need to pay you and what value you're going to bring if they give you a raise. Yeah. And that, my friend, is business, isn't it?
Oh my God, did you just do that?
Most people are entrepreneurs and they don't know it. You have to sell yourself, you know, the service that you're going to offer your company in the interview. Okay,
actually, and that brings me back to, what would you say is the definition of an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I've
like, take a stab at it. What would you, in your mind, who's an entrepreneur like that you aspire to, that you look up to, that you think that is who I want to be, or that's the kind of model of what I think entrepreneurs should be?
Okay, so all entrepreneurs, in my opinion, have something in common. And that is that they've seen something, they've had an idea, and they've executed on it, and executed well. Yeah.
But we kind of say like people do that on a daily basis. You get an idea and you execute on it. Like even in your job, you can do that. You don't have to be
A
an
lot of people
entrepreneur to do
don't.
that.
I know, but that's just what I see.
Okay.
And they all have that in common. And if we all have that in common, then we're all entrepreneurs.
Okay, then also going back to the point that you said about the key fundamentals of being an entrepreneur or running a business, what would you say those things are?
Okay, so do you know what? There's this phrase that's going around, which is success leaves clues. And there are lots of books about how entrepreneurs have become successful. There's a book called Rich Habits, which I talk about a lot in our seminars and stuff. And there's one called Success Habits. And it looks at what these entrepreneurs have done. So stuff like managing your time, managing your money, knowing what's going on, actually believing in yourself as well.
Yeah.
You have to have this sort of confidence, or confidence in the idea, especially. I think being an entrepreneur and being a successful entrepreneur really comes down to you as a person developing, being the best version of yourself that you can be.
You were talking a little bit earlier about the fact that you think everybody is an entrepreneur or everybody has the entrepreneurial spirit. And you also said something about in 2019, businesses, if you're starting a business, it shouldn't fail because there's models for how you should start, how you should run your business. Now, I am of the belief that actually, first of all, I guess because I'm a serial entrepreneur, I don't think you're going to have that one. Not everybody's going to have that Uber idea that's going to take them from zero to, oh my God, multi-millionaire, billionaire, or just really incredible idea that's going to change the world. And I think part of your learning process as an entrepreneur is to try new things and move to other things. So one of my kind of biggest role models of what an entrepreneur is Richard Branson, because what the hell hasn't that guy tried? Virgin Cola, really? Like, I mean, in his mind, he literally thought he could give Coca-Cola a run for their money with Virgin Cola. And for a minute there, he actually felt like he could have done it.
He almost did.
He almost did.
It's when he got on the wrong side of Coca-Cola when things went wrong.
Right? So for me, I look at that and I think about like, so for, someone like that who is a serial entrepreneur who, initially started off with a record store, but has now gone on to develop so many new brands that he then pulls away from. So I guess my question to you would be, what is the hallmark of an entrepreneur? Is it having that one brilliant idea, having the Facebook idea, or is it someone like Richard Branson who has lots of different ideas, creates lots of different brands, and essentially still is seen as, even though he's no longer associated with a lot of those brands, he's still seen as the architect for having created those brands.
Yeah. So the creators of something. So here's the thing. I had an amazing idea while I was at uni.
Ooh, tell us about it, Alex. Tell us.
So I'm at uni and we have to do a final year project. No, a dissertation. We have to do a dissertation and we're studying computer science. So we have to create a program that works. And my idea was to use a scripting programming language called PHP and a new language called XML. And XML was where I'd keep all of this database stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with that. So I thought I'll marry the two because at the time, a lot of people weren't mixing PHP and XML. It would be like PHP and SQL, which is the database stuff. So PHP would say, find this thing in this place. And I thought, I'm going to try PHP and XML. That's new. So I got marks for novelty because no one on my year was doing that. But the idea was I'd create a website, and if you came to this website and you logged in and you wanted to watch a video or listen to a piece of audio, as long as we had it in our database, you can watch it on that website. Create this thing and it worked. Does that sound familiar?
What, kind of like Netflix?
Yeah. So
you had and that's the other thing as well. Actually, finish your story, then I'll come back to what I was going to say.
So I created this thing. I was like, this works. And I went to, I said, I'm going to create this. And use it at my church so that people could listen to sermons and that kind of stuff. I didn't get the support that I expected. Maybe some people just didn't understand it, but the support wasn't there. And I wasn't that kind of person that like, I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm just going to just go. I've not been that aggressive previously. So the idea kind of went down. But while I was working at this market research company, I was just like, actually, that's a really good idea. What if, because part of the problem I was trying to solve at university was that there was a lot of illegal downloads of videos and music on Napster. Oh, I met the guy who led the team that took down Napster.
Okay.
That was just cool because I was just like, I'm creating this program. I'm just geeking out for no reason then.
Yeah, totally.
So it was so
I thought
cool.
you were gonna be like, oh my god, I met the guy who started Napster. And you're like, no,
Yeah,
I
he
met the guy
led the
that
legal
took
team that took down. That's a cool thing because Napster was like illegal and there was a whole this thing about it, and he led that team, and it was a big case. Anyway,
moving on very swiftly.
I created this thing, and part of the idea was I would go to production companies like the ones that put stuff on TV, the TV shows, all that kind of stuff. I say, give me your stuff maybe 2 months after or 3 months after it's been released, like your movies, and we'll put it on our platform. And it would either be a subscription model or, and this was back in 2009.
And when did Netflix come out?
So Netflix had been going for a while, doing the DVDs.
Okay.
But when it went online, I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But I thought that would be a great idea. Didn't follow through. Didn't have a mentor. Didn't seek one out. Didn't really know. And it was one of these things where like, I have an idea. I know it's groundbreaking. Don't really know how it's going to work. And there isn't anyone who's pushing me to say, do it. It's going to work. So that's why I didn't do it. But fast forward a few years, while I'm still at this company, after I was made redundant, I'm cleaning out my room and I see some pink A4 sheets of paper. And I'm like, what's all this? This looks really detailed. What's that about? And it was all the details, the design of the website, how it's going to look, who am I going to go to, and all this stuff that I just didn't do.
Yeah.
I had all this stuff. I took it out of my mind, put it on paper, and didn't do it.
Didn't follow through.
2 weeks before I saw that paper, these sheets of paper, there was an article about Netflix. Netflix had won a deal to provide all of the entertainment in some hotel in America, like Hilton or something. And you know, it's a lot. So every single room would be playing Netflix stuff.
Yeah.
So they went from a £10 million company to like £100 million or something. Yeah. And I was just like, that could have been me. It could have been me, or they could have bought me, or I could have been the UK European version.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm telling you now, I was depressed for 2 weeks. Like straight up. I was just like, my life could have been different. I called up my wife, Tiffany, and I'm like, babe, I'm so stupid. I should have just done it. All the other entrepreneurs that I admire, that's what they did. They found a way, and I didn't find a way. And I tell that story. I call it my regret story, even though it doesn't keep me awake at night, and it doesn't eat my soul out, kind of thing. But there's so many people who have had great ideas, world-changing ideas, but they've done nothing about it. Yeah. You know, and you've met people who've said, oh, I had that idea as well. Oh, yeah, great. Thanks for telling me. You didn't do anything about it. Do you know? What are you doing now? So, and I think that's the case with so many people who aren't entrepreneurs. Yeah. It's just like, okay, that's why I was saying for me is seeing an idea and executing well. I didn't execute. I didn't knock on doors. I didn't do anything. Yeah.
And the interesting thing for me is I remember when I was about 15, 16. So growing up, I was really, really into hip hop. So do you remember that song, Lord Tariq and Peter Gunn? So when this song came out, I was in school, and that intro, that dun, 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 I remember saying to my friends, oh my God, this will be such a great ringtone, right? And I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And obviously at the time, it was just an idea. I didn't think anything of it. And then fast forward like 2 years later, who came out? R&B ringtones. And I was like, oh my God, this guy stole my idea. Yep. But then it was like, no, because I didn't know this guy and he didn't know me. But then I realized that actually, number one, no idea is unique. No idea is like, it's not that you are the only person that's thought of this idea. It's just, and I think for me, that's the thing about like someone like Huber, like probably there might be somebody who has a similar story to you, who's like, I could have been who, but they had the idea. But you're right. He is literally who executes that idea first.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are so many people who have so many brilliant ideas who don't even take the steps to try and see how viable my idea is. You know, there's so many things. Like right now, we have a mic in front of us. I have one on me, and that was somebody's idea.
Yeah.
That was somebody's idea. Like everything that we have today initially started off as an idea. And all it took was that person working on that idea and making that idea into something that we all now use. And we didn't even know that we needed it. It's like the iPod. When the iPod first came out, nobody knew they needed the iPod. You know, so yeah, I think definitely you're right in that sense that, you know, one of the hallmarks of being a great entrepreneur is to be able to execute your idea, but also really strongly believe in the idea that you have.
And you know, one of the things that I didn't do, I didn't tell enough people about it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I don't want anyone to steal my idea. And
Yeah,
there's so many people who have great ideas. They don't tell anyone about it. 10 years later, they're like, this guy in Japan stole my idea.
Let's talk about that notion of not wanting to share your idea, your business idea, because you're worried that somebody might steal it or somebody might execute it and do it better than you. Where do you think that comes from, and how do you think that holds people back?
I think it comes from fear.
Yeah.
You're worried that listen, I don't know where it came from. I have no idea.
Okay.
I really don't. I know for me, I didn't want to tell anyone. It was, I was fearful.
Yeah.
I was fearful.
The other thing that you talked about is you have mentors. Now, that is something, again, I remember, you know, when I started my business, a lot of people talked about mentors, having a mentor, and, you know, people would talk about having their mentors. And for a very long time, I was like, okay, where am I going to get my mentors? And then I'll meet people and I'll be like, oh, I think you should be my mentor. And then the person will be like, no, thank you, I'm not interested, or it just wouldn't work out. So how have you, and then I got to the point in my life where I realized that actually I didn't need to have a quote unquote a mentor that I spoke to regularly. It could just be somebody that inspires me from afar, and they became a role model for me because I see what they've been able to achieve, and I want to use them as an example for what I want to create for myself and for my business. So how did you go about finding your mentors, and how did you go about developing the mentoring relationship that you have with them?
Okay, so I have a few mentors. I've got a marketing mentor.
Show off.
I've got a marketing
Of course
mentor.
you do.
I tell people all the time, you don't need to have one. You know,
People are struggling to find just one. So how did you?
I think sometimes you already have the mentor, but you might not know it. So the first person that I've asked to be my mentor, which made it kind of official, I was filming a project for a TV show, and he was a presenter, and I just liked the way he spoke, and I thought he was a cool guy. So there was something that we didn't capture on the night, or there was something that I didn't like about what the producers wanted us to do. So I said, hey, we should probably do a voiceover. So I said, let's get the presenter back to do a voiceover, and that would piece this little section together quite nicely. So he came to my office, he did a voiceover. While he was there, he met someone else whose name was Alex as well. Whenever I meet another Alex, amazing things happen. So he was like, you need to talk to Alex. I'm thinking, what do I need to talk to him? He's here to see me. Why? He had a similar idea about helping startups. He says, go talk to Alex. Alex is planning to do this whole new startup thing to help entrepreneurs and people to figure things out. So we're having this conversation, and I said, oh, so you've had businesses. He's had several businesses. He worked for a really big company where they pay him a lot of money to do what he does. And every time I met him, he would be giving me some nuggets. Right, his name's Roy, so I called him the Golden Roy, like the Golden Boy, the Golden Roy. Wow. He doesn't like it. Sorry, Roy.
And you just got on a lie to tell everybody that's what you call him.
Yeah, because he's an amazing man. So, and he's golden. Like, he was dropping nuggets, golden bars every time. And I was just like, wow. And I had been looking for a mentor. I had a criteria. And I'm not saying that everyone should do what I did, because everyone's different. But I had a criteria. I wanted someone who looked like me in some way. They were a father, and they would have had multiple businesses. A similar faith. That's what I was looking for. And he met all these things. And it took me a while before I muscled up the courage to actually ask him to be my mentor. Yeah. And he was...
How was that like, Alex? I'm so excited for you.
And he was like, I'm absolutely honored to like advise you in anyway. And I was just like, wow. He went forward and saying, if you have any questions at any time, send me a message, and within an hour, I'll get back to you. And I was just like, what?
Wow.
Because I had known him 2 weeks. And then that 2 weeks became maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'd known him for about maybe a month. Then I asked, maybe a little bit more than that. But it was just like, it was, for me, like asking that question was a big deal. And there was the part of me was like, why didn't I meet you when I had that Netflix idea? Do you know? So I've got several mentors. I've got a marketing mentor. My accountant is my finance mentor. I've got loads of mentors. I consider you a mentor.
Oh, thank you.
Do you know?
Alex.
You look younger than me, but
well, okay, that's the other thing as well. Does your mentor necessarily always have to be somebody that's older than you?
no. I think having experience, some experience that you don't have, is what's important. Yeah, there's someone else. I don't really consider him my mentor, but he has mentored me in some way. He's younger than I am. His company has turned over £1 million, more than twice.
Yeah.
He's younger than me, but my company hasn't turned over £1 million.
Yeah.
Talk to me, bro. Teach me something. Do you know?
Yeah.
Your mentor might not even be someone that you know. Like we
Yeah.
hear this all the time, but I think mentors and people, there are people out there who actually do want to help you and do want to see you do well. And I think it's just getting out of your comfort zone and going to meet someone and asking someone a question. And they don't have to be your mentor, because sometimes actually when you ask someone to be a mentor, then this pressure goes up.
Yeah.
But just send them a message or an email. Hey, last time you told me to do this, I've done it. What do you think? And they might say, meet me for a coffee.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you something else.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we're kind of getting to the end of the show. Alex, you've been an amazing guest. I've really, really enjoyed.
You've been an amazing host.
Thank
You've
you.
been an amazing host. I'm looking forward to the rest of Tacumba Chronicles, and I'm honored to be the first.
Oh, God. Anywho.
That means that I'm your favorite person.
Yes, Alex. That doesn't mean you are my favorite person. And listen, it's going to edit this bit out, so nobody's going to... I'm joking. I guess, okay, so I was thinking it would be nice to kind of end the show with kind of like a couple of questions. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years, I see myself in a nice, sunny climate, warm climate country. I see myself having impact more lives than I have now. And yeah, I think those two things will be like...
And what do you see yourself doing?
So I think I'll still be doing a lot of what I'm doing now. I think from our community, some of the stuff that I've learned, a lot of people don't know it. And I'm not trying to say that everyone should be an entrepreneur, but even if you're going to go for a job, please just know how much you need to get paid to survive. And I think I'll be doing a lot of what I'm doing now. So like, if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I would tell you that I would be doing what I'm doing now. And now that it's 5 years forward, I think I'd like to continue that and amplify it.
Yeah. And what are some of the ways you see yourself amplifying what you're doing now?
So I'm doing more events.
Yeah.
I'm going from a lot of one-on-one consultations to more group stuff and online. I would love to be doing consultations in different countries. Africa is calling me. I've been to Gambia 3 times, and I think it's time to see some other countries as well. And I think that, so like my name again means helper of men, or defender for some people, helper of people. And it's kind of like who has been taken advantage of, who've been oppressed. And a lot of that has been Africans, African Caribbean, African American. And I think that I would love to help those people more.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us have suffered. Some of it is our fault, just like every culture, and some of it isn't.
I agree, and I think you would definitely be an amazing helper of men. I know you've definitely been an helper of Tokumba. It has been such a pleasure getting to know you over the last 7 months. It has been a pleasure having you as part of the London African Food Team, co-founder, because you did earn that title, and I believe in giving due where honors due, and you definitely earned it. So yeah, for me, it's a privilege to be able to. And one of the things that I was very keen to do when I created and started working on the Food Week was that I wanted to create something that would exist with or without me. And so knowing that somebody like you came along and occupy the co-founder space, it was great, because then I know that even if I'm not around next year, Alex will make sure that the Food Week still goes ahead. And I think one of the other things for me as well is, one of the reasons why I wanted to start this show is I very much believe that I have value to give to other people, just because of some of the things that I've done in my life and some of the experiences that I've had. I feel like I have so many stories to tell. I've had so many lifetimes, and even in this life, I mean, I know I look younger than I am, but I feel a lot older than I am. And in my life, I've had so many things happen to me. And also through the nature of work that I did as a social worker, I listened to a lot of stories. And one of the things that always struck me is everybody has a story. No matter how small or big that person think that they have a story. And I know that, I mean, somebody came to my house yesterday and he was looking at my books and he's like, you don't have any like fun books, you have only serious books. And I'm like, what do you mean? I do. Like, I have like I have my business books, and I read a lot of business and personal development books, but I also love to read like fiction, and I love to read, autobiographies. And I remember growing up, reading Maya Angelou's memoirs, and that literally changed my life, because reading her stories, and I think I was about 21 when I first read her book. And I remember that age thinking, I called my friend, and I was like, what are we doing with our lives? By the time Maya was our age, she had done X, Y, and Z. And what am I doing? And it's only later on in life that I realized that reading her stories gave me permission that I didn't have to just be one thing. I could chase after all the different dreams and aspirations that I have. And so part of the reasons why I wanted to create this show was to really kind of like maybe inspire and empower other people, that you don't have to just be one thing. You can be so many different things, and you can occupy so many different spaces at the same time. And if not at the same time, you can try something for now, and when it doesn't work for you anymore, you can go on to something next. But really just about being a creative. And for me, it's only, I was speaking to Nene at the beginning of the year, and one of the things that came out was, because when I was in school, art was one of my worst subjects. I wasn't really very good at art. So I didn't see myself as a creative. I thought you had to be artistic to be creative. It's only now in my later life that I'm realizing that actually I am very creative. I'm just, the way I express my creativity is just different to what you would get from an artist. But, even in the way I set up my space, it's about, I'm expressing my creativity in my dress sense and how I show up. And again, for me, like I always say to people, is you always have to be very intentional, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a professional or you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever it is that you always have to be intentional in everything that you do. So I was, when I was discussing the premise of this show with my producer, one of the things that I said was, I would love to have Alex as the first guest, because I feel like we have an amazing energy and synergy between us. And I think that kind of came across really well, because at the beginning of days, I was stressed. But when we sat down, it just felt like, it was just, we did it, man. We crushed it.
Yes. You're an excellent host.
Thank you.
And I'm honestly looking forward to the rest. I think, like, you inspire me a lot. And I know you inspire others as well. The thing is with London African Food Week, it's like it hadn't been done before.
No.
But do you know when you're around people and you just feel that something's going to happen and it's going to be really good? That's what I got. But it wasn't because the idea was good, because I'm sure other people might have thought the idea, they didn't do anything about it. Yeah. But
actually, someone did, because there's a London African Food Week Twitter account that was created in like 2014, 2016.
Okay.
And nothing happened.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
People out here creating social media
I know,
handles.
and when people that mean like needs it, it's like,
Come on, and then you can't reach them. Oh, anyway. But yeah, so you did that. You brought a lot of people together, and that inspired me, because around that time I was thinking, I need to expand my team and all that kind of stuff. But something that really stood out is when you were speaking about how intentional you were with leaving a legacy. What's people are going to say about you when you're gone? And we all have the potential of doing that, but again, not everyone does it. And for you to be an entrepreneur, and for you to have this idea, you've got this podcast, you've done the fashion stuff, you've done so many things. We went to the same uni.
We did,
Goldsmiths.
actually. We went to Goldsmiths.
Actually, what did you study at Goldsmiths?
I left in 2003.
What did you do?
I did psychology.
Psychology. So I think that Goldsmith is really unique because it was an arts college, and they actually encourage you to be creative.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered that I didn't need to be artistic to be creative, even though video and photography is creative, but your thinking is creative. How do you solve a problem? And I think that's the difference between a lot of people. Like, if you can realize that you're creative in some way outside of something that you'll see, it might just be a creative thinker, then you're onto something.
I think for me, it's because I did psychology, and then I went on to work in education, and I did social work. So even though like I said, now I can reflect back and realize that even within those roles, my creativity was what made me really good at what I did. But because I was number one, I was working with emotions. So I had to be very logical in how I dealt with people. So even during this interview, some of the questions that I've asked you is very much reminds me of when I was a social worker, and I was asking my clients and trying to find out, who is this person? What is it about this person? And what is the problem that they have right now? And how can I, as an advocate, help them overcome whatever it is that they're dealing with? And I realized that, one of the things that made me really good as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, was because I had that skill set. So when I was dealing with, guests at my, whether it was at my supper club or whether it was the street food, I would use the same kind of like creativity to kind of like, okay, oh, you've never had Nigerian food before. Well, let me entice you and give you a taste of it so that you can maybe go away and be like, oh, wow, this is really great. And actually you could be like, no, tried it, wasn't for me. And so, and I think for me, I feel like I'm on a constant stage of evolution in my journey. And, I am very intentional about, because like I said, when I discovered what I'd written at 15, I discovered it exactly 15 years later when I was 30. And it essentially, like, it blew my mind. Because funny enough, I'd read The Law of Attraction, The Secret. And the first time I read it, I didn't really get it. And then the second time I read it, I realized that the reason I didn't get it was because it was already familiar to me. I was already doing those things. I just wasn't being intentional about doing it. And then when I discovered the essay that I wrote as a 15-year-old, where I basically planned out my life, and then I also reflected on other things that I'd done in my life, and realized that we do have the power to create the lives that we want for ourselves if we are intentional about it. So, and then also I was working with a coach, and he asked me the question of, is the life that you're living one that was created for you, or one that you've created for yourself? And again, that question really blew me, because at the time I was like, whoa, I sat down and I realized that no, I was living a life that was created based on other things that had happened to me, rather than choices that I made for myself, independently of things that people had done to me or a life things. So for me, I became more intentional about what it is that I was trying to do and how I'm trying to do it. And one of the things I'm very intentional about is bringing together a community. And, like you, I do very much want to work with people that look like me. And, even within all my careers, I've always tried to be an advocate for people in our community. And I definitely do not subscribe to the notion that Black people don't support each other. Like, I don't buy that. Like, I look at my business and I think about who supported me from inception, and it's my community. I think one of the reasons, I think sometimes we can be really tough on ourselves, and we can be more demanding from Black businesses than we demand from other people. But I think it's also just because we have a lot of negative stereotypes that we hold about ourselves. So instinctively, we ask for more because we're expecting less to start off with. Did I just drop bars? Did I just drop bars?
Bars for days.
Anyways, yeah, so that is the end of the pilot of the Tokumba Chronicles, and thank you guys for watching. I'm so excited to see how this develops. It's gonna be a series of interviews like this, and sometimes it's just gonna be me, myself, and I because I'm fabulous. No joking. Just because, yeah, like I said, I think sometimes there will be some topics that I would love to kind of like discuss and share with you, and I really would love to hear feedback from you guys on what you think of this show, what you think of the amazing Alex Pemberton, and what's the best way to connect with you, Alex, on social media?
On social media, I'm on Instagram, Alex D Pemberton. On Twitter, Alex D Pemberton. Actually, I've got a website. It's alexanderpemberton.com.
Yeah, so please make sure you follow Alex, connect with him. If you do have a business idea or you just have an idea that you think actually could this turn into a business, make sure you reach out to Alex for that consultation. I mean, I'm part of a mastermind with Alex, and he does something as part of his consultation called the Success Roadmap. I did it for myself and I was blown away. And like Alex said, I'm not easily impressed. And one of the reasons why I really love Alex is he continually impresses me when I'm not expecting it. So I did a success roadmap and it just really gave me even more clarity about my vision and what I'm trying to do and the resources that I have right now to get to where I'm trying to get to. So yeah, please share some feedback. What you enjoyed about the show, what you didn't like about the show. Please be gentle, guys. This is my first time. So, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but I would love to hear from you guys and what things you would like to see on the show. But essentially, Talking About Chronicles it's a story. It's a collection of stories, personal stories, stories from other entrepreneurs, and hopefully stories from people that have inspired me that I hope will also inspire you. Thank you.
Woo.